Good morning. My name is Tony Swafford, and I chair Adams and Reese COVID-19 Task Force. We appreciate you taking the time to join in on this webinar. The task force, as many of you know, has been engaged in sending out alerts on almost a daily basis, as well as putting out webinars and other information pieces to our clients to try to get you information in a concise format as the ramifications of the virus continue to unfold. This morning, it's my pleasure to bring Susan Eccles to you. Susan works in the area of construction law. For almost 15 years, she's represented owners, contractors, and sureties on a variety of construction project disputes. She assists clients in preparing notifications, requests for equitable adjustment, certified claims, and has litigated construction claims in both before federal boards and also in federal and state courts in Louisiana and Texas. She co-chairs the ABA's Public Contract Laws Government Construction Contracts Committee. She's an ABA fellow, and I know that she's going to have some great information for you. After Susan's presentation, we'll do a little follow-up at the end to let you know how you can access this later on and send in questions. With that, Susan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Tony. I'm very pleased to present our presentation on coronavirus impacts on construction projects. The situation in the United States is very fluid. Every state is experiencing something different. And from work stoppages in Boston to certain states deeming construction essential work, we know that our clients are experiencing a wide array of concerns, and whether they're dealing with residential or commercial projects, this is uncharted territory. So today we are going to look at really what you should do to prepare and how you preserve your rights, and whether this is under an AIA contract, the federal government's FAR, private contracts, or even Public Works Act. So that the types of impacts that are being experienced and will be experienced throughout the duration of the virus are schedule impacts. Schedule impacts are important because this can put you into liquidated damages, LD territory, and could also bring out a claim for termination for default and likewise wrongful termination. So one of the most important things that we need to address are schedule impacts. Time is money, and unfortunately for some contractors and projects, you may already be in liquidated damages territory. So you don't want this virus to increase those liquidated damages. So that needs to be addressed. Also, material impacts. There are certain materials that may not be available if your contract specified Carrara marble from Italy. Well, Italy has been hit, has been one of the hardest hit countries, and they may not be exporting the type of material that you specified in your contract. So instead of just deciding, hey, Carrara is nice, but let me put in white quartz, nobody's going to say anything. No, you need to get a change order to address that substitution. And in substituting materials, one also needs to be mindful of the increased cost of the material, or it could be that the substituted material is less expensive and that it would be a change order in the direction of the owner, with the owner being compensated for that reduced cost. Also, you're looking at material delays, and with delays in the supply chain, that once again hits the schedule. So, materials are going to be a significant impact. Also, we're looking at just cost impact. So if you had to have a crane on the project, but the project's been shut down, well, now you're renting that crane for a longer period of time. So the cost will continue to accrue along with time. Also, labor. If the virus continues to spread unchecked in some areas, You may not have the specialized labor available, or all of a sudden labor is going to be at a premium cost, once again driving up the total cost of the project. And one of the final types of impacts that we are looking at are terminations for convenience. Say, for example, the owner was going to build a new cruise ship terminal. Well, all of a sudden, that's no longer needed in this current environment. So the owner may opt to terminate the project for convenience instead of moving forward. So the goal of this webinar is to really help you get prepared. Obviously, you want to follow the federal and state guidelines that are continuing to be issued, it seems like daily, and they are constantly changing. So be sure that you are kept apprised of any developments on that front. Every contract is different, and whether you're residential or commercial, government contract versus private, the starting point for you needs to be the review of your contract or award and all of the relevant mods and change orders, because this is going to provide your roadmap for what you need to do, whether you're the owner, the general, or a sub, to protect your interest. Certain clauses that have been talked about more than others and that are getting a lot of attention right now are force majeure. That allows for a exclusion of performance delays, but unfortunately, you may not get any money associated with that. So while force majeure has gotten a lot of attention, it may not necessarily be your best option for being compensated for your loss. And compensated, I'm talking about general conditions and overhead and profit during this time. If you're on a federal project, you may be issued either a stop work order or a suspension of work notification. Well, these sound like they're the exact same thing. They are very different. The relief that you can get under a stop work order is different from the relief that you're entitled to under a suspension of work order. So first of all, make sure that you read the notification. If it is a stop work order, those are generally issued for a period of 90 days. That order can be expanded or shortened by the consent of the parties, but generally it's a 90-day stop. After the stop work order is rescinded and you're able to come back to work, the contractor only has 30 days to submit its claim. That is critical. You have 30 days. If you wait past this period of time, your claim will likely be rejected as untimely, and the contractor will have lost out on any recovery. It's also important under stop work orders that you can recover profit, unlike on a suspension of work order where a contractor is not entitled to profit. A suspension of work order, the claim must be submitted within a period of time that is practicable. However, there's no definitive time period. Government contractors are used to submitting claims after work is over and usually can do so for several years after. But under a stop work order or suspension of work order, this is not permitted. Another provision you're going to want to look at are general time extension provisions under the contract and your means for requesting a modification or a change order. I think one of the better places to start, if you know that your project has been impacted or will likely be impacted, or you have received one of these orders, is to meet with your project team. Get in touch with the owner, the general, the subs, the suppliers. Everyone needs to be on the same page to the extent possible. That will clarify rights and obligations moving forward and really help to keep the project on path. One of the key things that you want to do, regardless of where you are in the contractual chain, is document all of the impacts that you sustain as a result of the coronavirus impacting your project. You need to take action. As we were talking about with the contract, look at the notice provision. If there is a notice provision, be sure that you give notice in accordance with that provision. If not, you may be acting to your detriment. As we discussed with the stop work order and suspension order, you need to make your claim within the time periods allowed. Certain contracts and agreements may provide for waiver if you fail to act. One of the key things that often concerns construction councils dealing with federal government contractors are releases that are contained in contractual modifications. For instance, let's say the federal government and the contractor agree to a coronavirus time extension for 30 days. And you think, okay, I've got my time, I have money for general conditions, everything is fine, I'm going to sign this bilateral modification. But what the contractor may not realize is that the government is including a provision by which the contractor is inadvertently waiving its rights to all other remedies. We often see blanket waiver provisions in these bilateral modifications. An example of this is that the modification constitutes full compensation for changed work, including cost and time. Ensure that you do not inadvertently waive your rights. Beware of language such as full and equitable adjustment for all delays, all claims. You want to be sure that you are not waiving the opportunity to get a modification for unforeseen site conditions just because you're submitting a time extension for corona losses. So this is something to be mindful of, and often contractors don't realize the impact of this until it's too late. Maintain records of losses. Right now, this is a very fluid situation, and we do not know what the federal government programs are going to look like, what types of relief our clients are going to be entitled to. So keep everything. Some contractors and owners are more sophisticated than others. So if you can code the cost and flag all of that within your accounting system, do that. If your system is one where it's sticking receipts in a manila envelope, do that. But you need to track everything, because at this point we don't know what's going to be important. So if your shipping costs go up and you used to pay $10 and now you're paying $20, keep that. If your labor rates are increased, note that. Your materials are now increased cost with those materials, note that. You want to note every possible increase in cost for when you're seeking reimbursement or a claim. Also, you need to try to mitigate your loss. And what does that look like on a construction project? Well, it could be several things. You may want to explore the use of alternate technologies. We now have drones, and if you can utilize a drone for an inspection project and you're using one person and instead of a team of 10, when in some states you're not allowed to have 10 people gathering at one time, look into exploring that option. Talk to your owner. Can we resequence this work so that we're not putting people in as tight of a spot and they're not concentrated within a small field? Can we fabricate this pipe in our yard or shop instead of having to do it out on the job? Think outside of the box and look at other things you can do to continue to push that project forward. we do not know how long this is going to last. It may be until the summer. It could be several seasons of this coronavirus flowing through. So, everything is continuing to change, and you need to continue to be aware of your rights and obligations. What we don't want to see happen is that you wait 2 to 3 years down the line and the project's complete, and now you're looking to address the coronavirus impacts. By this time, the relevant personnel may have moved on to another company. They could have retired. You're having difficulties potentially finding your records, or they're incomplete. The institutional knowledge on the project has reduced, and it's not wise with this type of situation to wait until the end of the project to deal with it. You may have offset. While these things are ongoing, usually everybody's friendly, and we're all going to agree to work it out and resolve things. But then by the end of the project, people have gone to their respective corners and are not so willing to work together or give time extensions. Address this on the front end and do not delay, because it will only become more difficult to deal with as time goes by. I hope that this has given you some insight into potential issues that you may or likely will be dealing with on your projects, and we will continue to keep you apprised of developments within the construction industry.
Thanks, Susan, and thank you to our participants today. If you have questions related to this webinar, please reach out to Susan. You will have her contact information in the communication in which you receive this link. If you have other areas of concern related to COVID-19, feel free to reach out to me, and I will try to put you in touch with the appropriate lawyer within the firm based on subject matter. The task force will continue to update our clients as things unfold. Please reach out to us with any questions or concerns. Otherwise, thanks again for participating, and have a great day.